We're in about 7:04, so I think it's probably a good time to get started. And as people join us, as they come in a little later, then it should be fairly easy for everyone to kind of catch up. Thank you for joining us for this quarterly MARI webinar series. Today, MARI is pleased to feature and welcome Dr. Lynette Aldapa. Dr. Aldapa will be speaking on the topic of a culture of caring in education. She brings 33 years of teaching experience in both private and public education. Today, she will provide insightful and research-based information on the positive impacts that caring makes. She will also describe benchmarks of the benefits of a culture of caring for both students and administration. She will help to identify how best to set benchmarks, and discuss these ideas during the question and answer period. Dr. Aldapa has earned all her degrees and teaching credentials from Loyola Marymount University. She has a BA in history, a secondary teaching credential, an MA in education, and a doctorate in educational leadership for social justice. In fact, she was the first recipient of LMU's first Social Justice Award in 1983. It is with this lens that Dr. Aldapa has educated over 3,500 students. She taught in the same LAUSD multicultural neighborhood that she herself was educated in from K through 12th grade. Dr. Aldapa's life experiences, classroom teaching journeys, and extensive education provide her with a unique perspective and a refreshing voice on a wide variety of social justice issues that we can discuss in and outside the classroom. So join us as we explore, what is the culture of caring in education? What are its benefits? How do we identify these benchmarks in your school setting? And if they exist already, how do we expand on those benchmarks? So join me in welcoming Dr. Lynette Aldapa for this very important conversation.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're.
Oh, I'm on. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Lorena, for that very kind introduction and thorough introduction. Maybe I'll refer back to some of that in letting you know some of the experiences I've had in the culture of caring in education. And thank you to everyone who has gathered here tonight. This is the first time I've ever gathered in such a manner. So I am also grateful to Dr. Majori, who's my tech person and helping me through the night. Lorena did a thorough job of going over what we're doing here tonight. So we have a little overview of our agenda. It's okay. Well, Lorena already went over exactly what we're going to do. So we could, oh, there it is. Okay. So while we're going over what is the culture of caring and benefits, et cetera, maybe you'd want to go ahead and jot down some things that are like, oh, we do that. Oh, we could do that. And so we could share at the Q&A part and during the identification parts. So, well, I want us to look at tonight's talk embedded in the mission of MARI. And I've been informed that most of you participating are working with the high school kids. And so that anti-racism education circle in the Venn diagram is where we are. And then there's parents and kids and educators and all of us. So we're in that circle tonight. I could see other ways to move into the school curriculum impact later, but this is where we are tonight. And the talk that was given before was on microaggressions, if any of you had attended that one. And for microaggressions, basically it's the little racial insults that were coming at us. And I believe that the person gave you a shield to say, hey, no, you can't use those on me, and how to identify what they are. Well, I'm the flip side of that. I'm giving you a shield or your own sword as the culture of carrying in a sword. That doesn't make sense, but anyway, so that you can introduce a culture of caring as an option to those microaggressions. Because if you say no, no, no to something, then what is the yes that you're going to put in its place? And this is part of that. Okay, go on. My research is all it's all research based because it's part of my my dissertation, and as Lorena said, I work primarily with not with full-on teenagers, but preteens and some teenagers. So that's also the lens I'm going to be sharing with you. So what is a culture of caring? Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to work on what's the 2 things with the culture of caring that you need to consider. One is the cognitive domain, where you're thinking about things and how things work and you're being taught and you're learning, but you need the affective domain, the heartfelt things. So cognitive are your mental skills and affective are your heart skills, and you need both to learn. Well, even old Aristotle knew that back in the day, so we just need to remind ourselves. One thing that we learned very early as children would be to learn to say the ABCs. And we don't do that by robotic learning. We did that by singing a song and having a family member work that with us. So then we learned it by heart. So that's one way of seeing the cognitive and the affective together. Another way is learning how to read. That is also another affective domain, where you're cognitively learning how to read. You got your ABCs, and then someone reads to you for the first time. And so they're reading out loud to you, and you are learning how to read. It's an experience that is bonding between parent and child, or grandparent, whoever's reading to the child. But as this slide shows, that the most important part, it's an experience of an emotional connection. Now, that kind of reading and an emotional connection is important in elementary, et cetera. But I was teaching 7th graders for quite a while. And I was teaching different cultural backgrounds for the 6th and 7th grade curriculum. And I would introduce those civilizations, myths, legends, fairy tales, folk tales, et cetera. But it turned out that the kids were so bonded to me that they're like, oh, can we sit closer and listen to you tell the story? I'm like, huh? You read it out loud. You do all the voices. And so I would do all the ways of what do you think is going to happen next? Let's look at this type of wording, look at this big word, how can we figure it out, et cetera. Of course, I do all the teacher stuff, but they wanted to be like right up under me. And I even heard a kid say, this is like circle time. It's like circle time. I like circle time with Ms. Aldapa. So I knew they were engaged in listening to the story, and I knew that we were having a good experience. You could almost feel the energy in the room just change to something very magical, I guess. I don't know, spiritual magical. It was always nice when that happened. So those of you who are working with the teenagers, story time for them perhaps would be stories of great people who have gone before us and who have made a difference. Biographies, autobiographies, excerpts from speeches, someone's life. And those words of inspiration, they need to be read aloud. They not just go read Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. No, that needs to be said. It needs to be felt. It needs to be heard on all different levels. And so if you can get that into your high school kids, so that they can quote some things and feel it and know it, rather than, oh yeah, he had a I Have a Dream speech, Then my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And in the 1980s, he said that in 1964. And in the 1980s, I had the honor to meet his daughter, his oldest daughter, Yolanda, and hear her ring out her father's words. And it's a deep, meaningful experience that can spur you on to do things that you may not have the courage to do without that. Unfortunately, she's passed away, but I had let the kids know in my class, hey, I met Yolanda King. I heard her say her dad's words. And now we need to internalize that for us so that we can do similarly. I also had the honor of meeting Ruby Bridges and telling the kids about her fight to integrate Louisiana's elementary schools. And when I showed the video of her, I said, see where she's making her Easter cards? Yeah. I said, that's when I was born. She's still alive? I'm like, oh my gosh. The kids don't even realize how recent this all is. And then when I did speak to Ruby Bridges at this conference, I said, you need to come to Carson. You need to come to Carnegie. We live in a multicultural community. You could come see how we don't fight like that. They may do the fighting of the silly stuff, but it has nothing to do with race. And she said, well, I'm sorry, I can't go to your school because you already have it working for you. I have to go where I'm needed. So I'm like, oh, darn. Come and tell us we're doing well. Affirm the things that we are doing. I also had the honor of meeting Dr. Maya Angelou, and it was at the religious conference, education conference in Anaheim, if any of you have ever been there. And at that time was the 80s also, because I had a copy of On the Pulse of the Morning. She had just read for the inauguration of Clinton. This also tells how old I am. But anyway, I went in the back to get her to sign it. I had my pen ready and everything. Well, the year before I did the same thing with Yolanda King. So I guess they figured out, we can't let anybody come back here and shake people's hands and talk to them. So I went back there and the security guards were holding her hands. And I had my paper, and I'm only 5'2", and she's already over 6 feet, and she was wearing heels. So I'm like a little kid. Can you please sign this for me? Oh, I'm sorry, baby. I just can't. And she held up her hands, looked at them kind of, I'm just sorry. I'm sorry, baby. No. Like, that's okay. And I reached up and I patted her arm, ran back to my friends crying. They're like, what happened? She called me baby. They're like, what? So I'm just, when I have these encounters with great people, it's not like a football player or a singer or something. These are people who have made a difference in the world. And I try to pass on like I grabbed their baton. Here, you grab it too. Let's go. So yeah, with your teenagers, you need to instill examples of greatness so that they too can go out there. I would do a pageant of the Past Peoples Project and a Hero Shiro project with my students. And at the end, I'd say, well, why did I have you do that? And they're like, well, it's an academic thing. We got to get a grade, da, 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 da. And I said to them, that's part of it. The other part is, today you stood in the shoes of greatness. And when it becomes your turn, you know what it's about. And you can say, I got this, let's go. So, cognitive and affective, let's move on. So the research says that the affective domain includes caring, and it brings out the best in students through affirmations and encouragement. A trusting and caring relationship is the basis for effectual academics. You got to trust your your educator. You're not going to learn from somebody you don't feel like you trust. In my first day of school activity with the kids, okay, so I look like I'm all European, but I'm not. My dad's Mexican. And so the kids in my classes in Carson, they're majority people of color. And so I want them to be able to relate to me and not have any affective, like, oh no, maybe she won't understand me. I don't look like her. I don't want any of that going on. So I say to them, write the things down that are on the board and take little tally marks and explain to them what that is. Every time I tell you something about myself that you and I have in common, put a little tally mark. So I make sure I say things, at least 5 things that I know they're gonna say. So I grew up in this community. My dad didn't speak English at first, he spoke Spanish. I like cats. I'm the oldest of, so all these things. So I'm walking around and I'm fighting. If I can get them to everybody to have at least 5, then we've got a lot in common. So especially when it came to language though, my dad did not speak English at first. Mom and dad married. I'm the first child. Mom says, we're going to teach our children how to speak Spanish. No, says dad. Why? When I was young, I didn't speak English. They sent me home. I got held back. They made me feel real bad because I didn't speak English. I don't want that to happen to my children. So mom's like, okay, they'll learn in school. Okay. I'm in 7th grade. I get an elective for Spanish. I'm getting a C in the class. Dad is not happy. So he goes to speak to the teacher. Well, no wonder. What do you mean no wonder? No wonder you're doing bad. The teacher, she's from Cuba. The book is from Spain. And I'm like, well, Dad, what kind of Spanish do we speak? I don't know, Wilmington Spanish. And so the kids start laughing at that. But I tell them, hey, this is what has happened to you when you learned English, those who speak Spanish first, and then now they're in my class. I said, they were trying to teach you Spanish that in the book that's like Harry Potter Spanish. I mean, Harry Potter English. That's not the same as our English. And the teacher was from Australia. That's not our English. And you're sitting in class in Georgia and everybody's talking like this. You don't know which way it's all going. It's like, oh, what's happening? I said, so I understand. I said, but those of you who have Spanish, guess what? You get to help us. Help me, because I don't speak Spanish a little bit. So when we see a big word, you're going to help us figure it out, because many big words have a Latin root to it. And that's what Spanish is. It's rooted in Latin. And so, like, if I say coronation, what's happening? And then a non-Spanish person will say, Corona is in that word. They're drinking beer. I'm like, no, that's not what's happening. Okay, Spanish speakers, what is a Corona? Oh, it's a crown. Like, very good. So what's happening in this event? Someone's getting a crown. So they're elevating up from prince to king or whatever it may be. And yeah, they might have a few beers at the reception. I don't know. But anyway, thank you, Spanish speakers. So those who once were looked at as, well, you don't speak any English, you gotta learn English, you live here in the United States, blah, blah, blah. Thank you, Spanish speakers. You've helped us figure out these words. You have a tool that's great. That's a great tool. And of course, the rest of the class is like, I want to learn how to speak Spanish. I'm like, okay, great. All right, let's see, what else? Respect is the essential aspect for an ethic of care. Respect is so powerful. In fact, students believe that both being respectful and equitable toward them is the key. It's the most important thing. They want to know, am I treated equitably? Not just equality, where you see there in the picture, everybody's got one, you got one, you got one, you got one. But in terms of learning, maybe that one isn't going to do it so I can learn. So as you see, equity is you're given the things that you need so you can learn. So it's like, oh, I need a pencil. Here's your pencil. Okay, everybody gets a pencil. No, it's just whoever needs a pencil, etc. So what kind of things do kids need? Well, they need to know that their teacher cares about them, and that's going to make things better for them. So here's a list of characteristics that students have, or the research and students have identified as characteristics of a caring educator. And as you look at this list, ask yourself, do you see this in your classroom? I mean, are you the teacher and you see things like that happening? Are you hearing from students, that these are or are not happening? And think about who does that in a classroom. Oh yeah, I remember my 5th grade teacher, he always blah, blah, blah. Yeah, oh yeah, that's a characteristic of that favorite teacher of mine in high school. They always answered my question. And oh yeah, we're called each by name rather than being called names. Hey, you over there. No, call me by my name. So there it is. You can think about who that represents, even in your families and outside the family. But these are caring characteristics. I would add, personally, help students to avoid being embarrassed. That is huge, especially for those middle schoolers. Oh my gosh, they don't know which way they're coming. They're still losing baby teeth. And the biggest thing for them that I always try to keep them like, it's okay, pimples. I know that sounds funny, but they go, oh, Miss Aldapa, I have a pimple. So I would always say to them, good for you. And they look at me like, what do you mean good for me? I said, well, babies and little kids, they don't have pimples. This just means you're growing up. Oh, okay, you're growing up. That's all that is. Don't worry. So one year I had that conversation with a little girl named Grace. The very next day I show up to school and I have a big old pimple on my chin. And I'm like, hey, Grace, look, good for you. What do you mean good for me? Oh, Miss Aldapa, you don't see old ladies with pimples, do you? You're still young. I'm like, oh, okay. Good one, Grace, good one. So I just turned 60 the other day and worried about tonight. I've got a pimple here on my chin. So I guess I'm still young. All righty. You got the characteristics of it. Okay. And also with the saving a child from being embarrassed, it also works in a type of caring discipline in the classroom. And that looks like this. You never embarrass a student in front of their peers. If you can avoid it, you avoid it. You can say, hey, come outside with me, or hey, come to my desk, or we're going to talk a little later. But you don't put them, like the kids say, don't put them on blast. So-and-so, blah, blah, blah. You don't want to be yelled at either like that. So why would anybody do that to a child? There's no ridiculing going on. And you're very specific about what went wrong or what the behavior is that isn't working for the classroom. Say, you were doing this and I need you to do that. Or you were doing this and I need to ask you, what's the problem? Why does this keep happening? How can I help you? Versus blame, blame, blame. It's like, maybe there is something going on behind the scenes. So here's the story. One of my honor students, first period, she was late all the time. And the policy of the school is if you're late so many times, you get unsatisfactory in behavior and effort and all that stuff. So I pulled her aside. I'm like, she's an A student. And she walks in quietly, like she's all embarrassed about being late in the first place. So I talked to her during some downtime and I'm like, what's going on? Well, Mom was hiding the car from the repo man and it's hard to find the car in the morning. And then we got to drop my brother, and he's always late. I'm always on time. I'm always ready. But it's basically the car and the repo man. I'm like, I am not going to mark this child tardy because her mama is hiding the car from the repo man. And bless her heart that she felt she could share that with me. And bless my own heart, because I'm like, I'm going to save you. Like, okay, we're not going to mess with this. That's way beyond you, little seventh grader. That's beyond your powers. When you grow up, you won't have that problem. And very last is that in the discipline, you always have to communicate that you care about the student. Like, maybe they blew up and just had a hissy fit in class. Like, look, I care about you. And maybe you just need to go to the restroom and put some water in your face, get a drink of water, etc. So when people sincerely care about others, they will find a way to treat others justly, fairly, and equitably. And sometimes I came up with some creative ways to do that, but yeah, we got to do that. Okay. Let's see. Some of the benefits of having a culture of caring. Oh, let's see, that's at the motivate one. Oh, that mode. Okay, so by having those types of that culture of caring, it's going to motivate those kids to learn. They're going to feel like they're connected to everybody. They know what they're doing, and even if they didn't know what they were doing, they feel comfortable enough to ask. And like I was talking about the Pageant of the Past Peoples Hero Shiro thing, the kids had you're supposed to come as a person from our history text. There's not enough people in there, and there's not enough women in there, and there's not enough of whatever cultures we may have, like in Carson, so Samoan, Filipino, etc. So you give them choice. Like, okay, so you choose who you want to be, run it by me, and I want you to like own what it is you're going to do. And you'll be motivated to do that because you'll be like, hey, I get to represent my people, or I get to bring another point of view that nobody else had. And then you'll see Dr. Aldapa getting all excited about that for you. And that also motivates you. Okay, so let's look at, so that's a benefit to having a culture of caring, is that you're motivating your students to do other things. And then another one, oh, here they are. These tangible benefits of caring in education. So students are going to flourish in a classroom where they're cared for as a person and as a learner. If they perceive that their teacher cares about them, they're motivated to put forth more effort. They're like, hey, oh, you liked what I did? Sure, I'll show you the next assignment, what I can do. Students will learn from caring teachers and learn for caring teachers. So as they're doing that, all these other things start showing up: higher scores, higher test scores, how they get levels of academic achievement. It just goes on to better the whole school, not just inside the classroom and not just for the student itself. So the thing of like, if the student will learn from a caring teacher, but then they'll also learn for the caring teacher. That happened in my class a few times, because as I was studying this stuff, when I was getting my master's degree and my doctorate while I was teaching, we'd have silent reading time. And at the end, we would share what we were reading. And I would share with them some of the things I was reading in the articles. And I said, hey, this says, if you learn from a caring teacher, and they're like, yeah, that's you, that you will also learn for your caring teacher. What does that mean to you? Oh, I know. You know how you have us do all those maps all the time? I'm like, yeah. Well, they're not, that's kind of boring for some of us, but we're going to do our very best because you asked us to. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. And then I had a student, he was not failing, but he was getting D's in all his other academic classes. And his counselor said, you know, he's only getting an A in your class. I'm like, I didn't know that. I said, he's in the honors class. Oh, he's not identified honors or gifted. He just ended up in there. I'm like, okay, so what are you telling me? He's not working for his other teachers. He only works for you. Okay. So I'm like, all right, JP, this is what's going on. So what do you think? Well, it's because you're a good teacher. I said, okay, I get that. But how about put some of the effort that you know how to do in my class into the other classes and bring your other class grades up to at least C's, okay? I'll do it for you. And he actually did. Of course, his grade went down to a B in my class, but everything else went up to a C. But anyway, it got him motivated to do something. So the caring atmosphere, they're motivated, they're engaged, and you get better outcomes. Oh, and a story about the culture of caring and how it actually helped this teacher. Okay, there was a time something happened to me, and my students cared enough for me to take care of me. So I was opening my classroom door, and 2 6th graders are running around the corner. It's a morning, all of my 7th graders are beside me. And I say, hey, slow down before you, and before I could say, before you knock somebody over, they knocked me over. There I go. And I'm a pretty big girl. So there I am, sprawled out on the cement in front of my room. And I hear my 7th graders buzzing around me. I'll open the door. I've got her bag. I got her lunch. I've got her purse. I'm like, oh, okay. We've got the boys that knocked her down. Okay, so they're now up against the wall. And I'm thinking, oh, please don't hurt them. So then I hear, I'm calling the office. I know where the paper towels are and the first aid kit is. Her hand is bleeding. So I'm like, oh, wow, this is really something. So they helped me up. It took a few of them. They helped me up, and my hand is up, and I've got like 3 little nurses on my hand taking care of me. And I look at the boys who knocked me down, and they're about to cry. And I said, so it took 2 of you to knock me down, huh? And they're like, oh, it was an accident. It was an accident. I said, of course it was. Because if it were on purpose, that was called assault, and you could be in really big trouble. So now they're ready to, they're like really crying. And my big boys are like, oh, that's what you get. You're lucky she's nice, or she'd have you like arrested. I'm like, okay. So anyway, I got better, etc. But had I not cared for those kids, had I been that teacher, oh, they could have laughed at me. They could have kicked my stuff around. They could have gotten in the room and done all sorts of stuff. I don't know, but they were circling around me, taking good care. And who gets that? Who gets that? So I was grateful for that. Okay, so let's look at, let's go to the inbox. Let's now identify for ourselves where you are, where your school setting, et cetera. What's already being done that so that your students can flourish academically? What are the caring elements? If you could identify those, and then you can type it into the chat. Okay. I'm not typing right now. No. Okay. And then you can type into the chat and we can respond about, oh, let's take a look at these ideas. And then that way you're sharing your ideas with others who are sharing theirs, and we can like feed off each other, like, oh, I can, that's a good idea, etc. So I'm looking forward to you to type in something that you know already happens at your school. Okay, well, while you decide oh, here we go. Support staff and counselors. You know, the support staff and counselors at Carnegie Middle School, for the most part, they were very in tune with the culture of caring. Probably because two of the security guards had kids that went there and like, hey, these are my kids. And they were both Samoan. So the Samoan community is very tight. And so kids would go to them and say, hey, this is happening, that's happening. And then they can refer them over to counselors. And then the counselors, well, 2 out of 3 weren't bad, but it was okay. They were able to take care of the kids from there. And then also we had a group, an office called Healthy Start. So if it had to do with academic stuff, we could handle on campus. But some of the things, maybe it was a family thing going on, and Healthy Start had to step in. One morning, one of my boys just during homeroom just started crying. I'm like, what's going on? I can't wear these shoes anymore. I'm like, well, then take them off. I go, what? And we were outside. He goes, Mom can't afford any shoes and these are killing me and I'm growing. I'm like, okay, here's a note. Go to Healthy Start. She'll hook you up. Simple as that. You don't have to cry. It's all good. We're going to take care of you. And of course, there was a lot more than that going on at the house, and Healthy Start made a difference. And within a month or two, he was a new person. And he said, thank you. I got to try. I felt I could trust you. I'm like, there's other people you can trust, but I'm glad you reached out because you did need some help. Okay. So support staff and counselors, yes, they have a role in that. As long as the whole school perhaps needs an in-service on, this is what we're doing, this is what we've already done. This is a thing, it's researched, and it can prove to help all of the kids everywhere on campus. Shoot, we had janitors and cafeteria workers that were right there for the kids too, so, okay. Anyone else? Okay, so why don't we thought about what it is that we already do. So now let's think, whoa, there went the flowers, they're out of the box. Let's think about what we could add on to things that occur at our school. Get some ideas about something new you could possibly start there. These are all the participants. Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity Committee okay, that sounds good. I don't know what all they do, but it sounds like that's a great committee. I don't know what else to say to that except for it sounds good. I would like to know more about that and maybe advise about that. Or is that committee already there? Or is this a suggestion for a new one? Newly formed to support students of color. Oh, good. Okay. CARES team at these classes. Maranatha High School is focused on these strategies. Oh, good. So has a CARES team to implement programs. Okay, well, maybe perhaps the what's FS? So maybe the FSHA and the Maranathas can get together and brainstorm with each other. What are best practices?
Yeah, so Fashaw
You are okay.
is the Flint Ridge Sacred Heart. You're familiar with Flint Ridge Sacred Heart.
Yes, I just the Fashaw, like what? Okay. Well, their group, Flint Ridge, Sacred Heart, and Maranatha, perhaps can
Mhm.
cross over and have some talks about best practices, and then just work off each other synergistically as what else.
Definitely. I think right now people are struggling to find what those outside the box ideas are. And I think
Uh-huh.
that we can implement committees and we can implement all of these programs, but something that just really interacts with the kids or something that just really intrigues them in a way that is outside the box to bring them into just an engaging environment with or relationship with their teachers, I think would be something that we're
Yeah.
all trying to explore what the best way to do that is.
Right. I did a pers- professional development at Carnegie, and it was called "You Can't Spell Carnegie Without Caring." So all the letters are in, yeah. So, but when I was talking with the I see you laughing. When I'm talking to the teachers, the educators, the support staff, the everybody, I get to their affective domain right away. And I say, let's think back. Why did we want to become a teacher? How did that work for us? Or let's think about how did we, come to work at schools? What do we like about kids, etc. So I push that, and we get to those heartfelt stories, and I tell my heartfelt story about it all. And it kind of pulls everyone to their best selves. And if in the room there's someone who, you don't need to be here because you don't even like kids, why are you even here? Maybe they need to get back to, come on, get with it, and or administrators need to talk to them and maybe counsel them a bit on, why are you here? Okay. When did they implement that? Infinity Group Culture Clubs for Students.
Hmm.
Yes, culture clubs for students, definitely. At Carnegie, like, we had every background there was. Of course, everybody was invited to everything. So I remember the Samoan Club, part of their, when they would do the haka, you know what a haka is, with like kind of a chant for the boys, like before a football game or something. So there are these boys up on the outdoor stage, and Kiki, our security guard, big guy, and he's on the mic. He's like, "Oh, as you can see, Samoans come in all sizes and shapes. Yeah, that little skinny guy, it's okay. He's Samoan. Oh, and that white boy, he's only half white. It's okay. He's Samoan." And so he's showing the diversity within the diversity. And then he started talking about the kids who were not Samoan at all. And these are our friends, huh? And they're like, you, or whatever they were doing back at him, sounding very, but they're so funny. But everyone was loving it because they were loving that haka energy. And ilava lavas, or like the little, like a sarong kind of thing, but it's for the girls and the guys. So you would see guys, every Friday was ilava lava day, and the boys would be wearing their thing wrapped around their shorts or their pants. So nobody made fun of them, like, oh, you're wearing a dress. That didn't happen. And then their culture with the ukulele, you see this big guy, like the guy who sings Over the Rainbow with the ukulele. He's a big guy. You see that going around on campus. So if we acknowledge and love and support everybody's stuff, yeah, those culture clubs are very important. Let's see. I don't know what the Infinity Group means, but Mari is introducing consultants to help the schools with specific diversity and inclusion programs to help the staff and committee learn a new way of thinking and responding. Awesome. That's an awesome thing right there.
And I think just to kind of, for the sake of time, I think
Yes.
maybe as we go through this, and I think what we really just needed to walk away, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Aldapa, but
Mhm.
the teachers, as they're implementing these strategies, are really getting back what they put in. And I think a lot of
Oh,
kids today are just feeling maybe the lack of that investment of caring from the teachers. And ultimately, I think you've given us some amazing examples of how to go about doing that, and really just connecting one-on-one and having that level of respect for differences, I think is what's ultimately going to get us there. So I think that that's kind of what we've walked away with today. And if anybody else has any questions, or if Dr. Aldapa, you have anything else to kind of wrap up their message, then I think we've learned a lot today.
Oh, okay. All right. So I think I'm done reading the stuff that was said. So thank you for having me here tonight. I believe that there are other things I can say and do to help Mari out. And it would be my honor to do so. And your work is transformative. It's what we need. We've hit critical mass. And you're acknowledging it, and you're being there at the right moment in time and the right moment in history. So thank you for letting me be part of this journey with you.
Thank you very much. And for all of the participants, we will have a recording of this presentation that will be sent out to everybody. And once again, thank you very much. And I hope that you found today's discussion informative. Thank you, Dr. Aldapa.
Oh, are we off for the rest of the people? Or is it just us? Okay.